This is Ivan Koloff, the Russian Bear. Yes, I've wrestled many times. I had the pleasure defeating Bruno Sammartino, WWF champion. But I want to encourage everybody to listen to In Your Head, online.com, the best in the West and East.
All right, we are back, and we're joined by Nikita Koloff. Welcome to In Your Head.
Hey, man, good to be with you guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's cool to have you on. Let everybody know that you're going to be at the second annual Magnum TA Clash for the Cup. And for your ticket information, you go to ProWrestlingMidAtlantic.com. That's going to be in Chesapeake, Virginia, and that's Saturday, January 26th. Doors open at 6:30, bell time at 8. You're also going to be there with Magnum TA, Nikita, obviously Nikita, Ivan Koloff, Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man, and Tony Atlas. You obviously have a lot of history with Magnum TA, so is it like, does it mean a lot to you to be at this show?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a real honor. It's a real blessing to be able to, to lift him up and just be a part of it. We do have a lot of history, you know. We had as I talk to a lot of fans, as I continue to travel around the world, and as they reminisce over different matches, some of the matches with Magnum, I guess probably the ones most often mentioned is the best of 7 series that he and I had, and I've been humbled by many times hearing that many anyway feel that was one of the best series of matches that they had ever witnessed, and so it's just a special honor to be a part of this coming event. So I always look forward to seeing Magnum again as well.
You think like your feud with Magnum is really what made people see you as like a legitimate single star?
Yeah, I think, of course, you know, I was fortunate to, the way that the wrestling career was launched, to be at a main event position essentially from day one. And of course, I think the feud with Magnum certainly escalated to bring it to as far as the heel and the bad guy role, to bring it to a crescendo in terms of being at one point being voted the #1 most hated guy in wrestling, and I'm sure the matches with Magnum had an awful lot to do with that because of the intensity of the matches. I've heard many comments from fans over the years who said, we watched those matches and we're like, well, I don't know about any of the other matches, but that match between Magnum and Nikita was real. And but that was my goal. That was Magnum's goal, was to really give the fan their money's worth, and so I would have to say yes.
Do you think that's why people remember that era so fondly, because everything was intense and it was really believable?
I do. The NWA is of course later on became WCW, was a very unique brand of wrestling, and for a very unique time, really. I think it's an era that I don't honestly know will ever be repeated. And again, I remember in asking that question, I can remember when we first went to Philadelphia, and as we began to branch out, once we went on TBS on the Superstation, and what the people of Philadelphia were used to prior to us coming in, was the main event match where it was 15 minutes of an introduction and a 5-minute match. Mm-hmm. And there was more hype before the match and after the match and the actual match itself many times. And I'll never forget the very first time I'm wrestling Ric Flair for the World Heavyweight title in Philadelphia. And 5 minutes into the match, the people are chanting, boring, boring, boring. However, it took about 6 months of conditioning them to understand our brand of wrestling. And then I'll never forget coming back with Flair in Philadelphia, and often he and I wrestled for 35, 40, 45, 50 minutes, sometimes a 1-hour draw. And I'll tell you what, those people in Philadelphia never sat down. They were on their feet the whole time. And so they really, I think, began to appreciate our style and our brand of wrestling. And not just Philadelphia, many towns across the nation. And So I believe it's an era that just will never be repeated.
Was there like a certain pride being, with the NWA at that time? Like, how did you guys look at like WWF wrestling?
Well, I think kind of the general consensus was, of course we even attached the moniker, we're the NWA or we're WCW and we wrestle. And I think the consensus was, okay, you've got the wrestling over here on this channel and you've got the cartoons over on the other channel. They had all the flamboyant characters and, this, that, and the other. And again, they had the music and they had Hollywood mixed in with it and et cetera. And yet many times, somebody's asking me the other day, hey, what was your ring music? And I said, I didn't have ring music, nor did I want ring music. I wanted my music to play while I was in the ring from bell time to bell time. That was my music. Mm-hmm. And so I think as we set ourselves apart from that, for that reason, we were different for that reason. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Getting kind of back to your history with Magnum, do you think, was it like bittersweet when, you became a babyface and you're getting the big pops, teaming with Dusty Rhodes, but at the same time, you're replacing Magnum TA after his accident?
Yeah, it was actually a shock for me that when I first heard about his accident, because I'd just come back. It happened while I was on a tour in Japan, and I really, quite honestly, thought they were pulling my leg when they first told me. And then once I realized that they were serious, it was a bit of a shocker initially. And then as they approached me about the idea of making the turn, which I'd never been done before for a Russian guy. To become a babyface, become a fan favorite. And the more I thought about it, I thought, well, you know what? Perhaps because it's never been done before, and perhaps because of the heat that I have as a heel, perhaps it'll work. And of course, history speaks for itself. And tagging with Dusty and becoming the superpowers, and the Russian nightmares, and the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, It captured the audience, and I believe that turn, number one, was one of the greatest secrets in wrestling for its time ever, but secondly, left such an impression on people's hearts and minds, quite honestly, as I received a lot of letters over the years and people who shared with me that did I enjoy being the babyface? I did. Did I enjoy being the heel? I did. I enjoyed both aspects of wrestling, and glad I got the opportunity to have both aspects.
Did anybody in your family, were they upset that you were playing, like a Russian heel during the Cold War on TV?
No, not really, because I sat them down and explained to them what the deal was, even legally changing my name and to protect the character and build that character to what I thought it could become. I had no idea that it would take off the way it did. In fact, just last weekend I was in Nassau, Bahamas, and we came out of a church meeting, and this guy pulled me aside, wanted an autograph, and looked at me and said, "So you're really not from Russia?" I said, "No, really not." And I hear that quite often, and they're like, "Man, all these years I believed you really were." And I'm like, well, that was my job. My job was to convince you I was. And so when I talked to my family, I simply explained to them, look, I'm really trying to get this character over, and so this is what I feel I've got to do. And they were very understanding and very supportive of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, the first time I heard an interview with you, when you're not doing the voice, I was really shocked, because I honestly thought, the whole time I was watching wrestling, as a kid, I really thought you were from Russia.
Yeah, see, and I'm humbled by that, because I guess it's a blessing to me, in the sense of I must have done my job, to convince that many people like yourself and many others who when they first hear me speak English are shocked. This guy in the Bahamas last weekend was shocked. So,
You did so much, to protect your character in the wrestling business. Were you angry when Vince McMahon came out and said, that wrestling is like entertainment, it's not a sport?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say I was. I wouldn't say I was angry as much as disappointed. the business had been around a long, long, long time, and guys for years worked extremely hard to protect the business, and myself included. I mean, I legally changed my name. Hello, come on. I talked with that accent. If I was in public, anywhere in public, other than the privacy of my home or perhaps the privacy of my car, I was talking with that accent for 12 years. I didn't go. I owned a health club in North Carolina. I'd spend 7-8 hours in the health club and talk with that accent, whether I was training people or whatever. And so they're disappointed than anything that the cat was let out of the bag, so to speak. And but it is what it is. He did what he did, and so now we move on.
We actually got a caller here. We got LTNA Fran. He's calling from Portugal.
Yes.
You have a question?
I have two questions for Mr. Koloff. First of all, my question is, was working for the Jim Crockett promotions, do you consider that promotion to be the best in terms of from all the American promotions you've worked, do you consider Jim Crockett promotions to be the best in America?
Well, essentially it's the only promotion I actually more or less worked for, although, I did go up and make some shots for Vern Gagne in the AWA as we had, actually the Crockett's and Gagnes were working together for a while. And let me answer the question this way, too. So from that standpoint, I'd have to say, yeah, it was the best because it's really the only one I worked for. But I say that to say as I had other opportunities to perhaps go other places, including New York and with Vince McMahon, I felt like because Jim Crockett gave me the break that he did in the way I broke into wrestling, that there was a sense of loyalty. Could I have went to New York and probably made 10 times the money? Yeah, probably, most likely. Most likely I would have been in the ring, main event at some point with Hulk Hogan and et cetera, et cetera. But I felt a loyalty to Jim Crockett Promotions for giving me the break they did, which is why I essentially stayed with him my entire wrestling career.
That was my question, and it was in that sense if that was the company where you had the most fun, if you enjoyed. But yeah, that's pretty much the question that I have. I have also a second question, Jack. Go with it. You were talking about Japan, working in Japan. From other promotions outside of the U.S., what was the country that you enjoyed working the most? Was it I don't know if you worked more countries than Japan, but if you worked there, just overall, in terms of working outside of America, for what promotion did you enjoy working the most? Okay.
Japan was a lot of fun. I really did enjoy working with the guys. Of course, a totally different style of wrestling and totally different style of even from fan reaction and that sort of thing. But there was some really wonderful fans. I'd have to say Japan by far. If I look at all the other different countries that I wrestled in.
All Japan in specific. I don't know if you worked in another promotion, but did you work in? That was the place that you enjoyed working the most. All Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, with Baba. Yeah, with Baba.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for calling in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it over there because it was more kind of a stiff style? I guess it was stiff in the NWA, of course, too.
Yeah, but, of course, anyone who knows anything about my career, that's what they labeled me as anyway, which was stiff, and that's okay. I was okay with that. Again, my moniker, my goal was believability, and so, I would tell the guys, look, you might as well lay it in on me because I'm going to lay it in on you. So I was okay. I fit in with Japan with their stiff style.
When Vader hurt you, do you think it was like carelessness on his part, or was it just something that happened in wrestling?
Well, he kind of had a tendency to be a bit reckless. Careless is the word you used. Reckless will be the word I used.
Right.
And to where because of that reputation, there were certain things that I just absolutely would not allow him or other guys to do to me because of their reputations. On this particular night, I simply didn't know he was charging me, in a 10-yard clip and going to clothesline me into the back of my head. If I had known it was coming, perhaps I might have braced myself a little bit differently. Perhaps the same thing would have happened. We'll never know. But
right.
But it is part of the business. It is what it is. So I just may do how I did. So
we got another caller here. Who is this?
Hi, this is Dave.
Hi, you're on there with Nikita. You got a question?
Yeah, I do. I've been a fan since '85, Nikita, and my question is, what was it like to wrestle against the Road Warriors?
Some classic matches. The people look at that as obviously a pit of muscle against muscle, and probably as even a matchup as they had ever faced, from what I've been told over the years. And so it was pretty enjoyable. I think we give the fans their money's worth, and certainly from my perspective, enjoyed both wrestling against them, but then also wrestling with them when we did a lot of the 8-man tags against the Four Horsemen, and especially the War Games. It was pretty fun.
Thanks for calling in, Dave.
Thank you.
Did you have anything from the message board, Incher?
Actually, Old School had a question. He wants to know who was easier to get heat on wrestling, Ric Flair or Ricky Morton?
What was the first part of the question? Something about heat?
Yeah,
who was easier? I think he's pretty much asking who was the better, maybe babyface worker, Ric Flair or Ricky Morton.
Oh goodness, Ricky Morton is an incredibly talented worker. Certainly enjoyed the many matches we had with him. Flair, I look at Flair as the consummate wrestler. I look at Flair as the one with an ability to be able to make a broomstick look good. It didn't matter who he was wrestling. And not that Ricky didn't have talent to work with anyone. He did. But I'd probably have to give the edge to the nature boy.
All right. Before I let you go here, Nikita, anything you want to tell everybody? Why they should come to the event Saturday?
Well, you know what? I just hope for the listeners out there. If you like the good old days and want to, shake hands and meet some of the good old boys, Uncle Ivan Koloff and myself, of course, as you mentioned, Tony Atlas and the Jimmy, the Boogie Woogie Man, Valiant, the boy from New York City, and of course Magnum, and there'll be many others there. Some wonderful matches. I'm sure there'll be some great matches, and be able to shake hands, take some pictures. I'll have some of my books there. I've written a couple books. One, Breaking the Chains. Second one, Wrestling with Success, and some DVDs. I'll have some different things there that I'll make available to folks, and certainly just like to talk to people and let them know. Most of the people don't, or a lot of people don't know that. I run into people all the time. I'm like, "What are you doing now?" And they don't even realize that that I'm an evangelist, an ordained minister. In fact, I'll be speaking in a church there in Chesapeake on Sunday morning. And so for the listeners out there that want to come and hear the rest of that story, we'll have that information at the event on the church I'll be speaking at on Sunday morning. In fact, Ivan and I will be tag teaming at the church. And so we hope everyone, or as many as can, will come out there and just kind of hear the rest of that story. We can share our hearts out there and just see the changes that have taken place in my life and Ivan's life. And so I'm just excited as I travel around the world, and wrestling has just become a real platform to speak into people's lives and really make a difference. My goal now is not to entertain people in a squared circle. My goal now is to speak a positive message into people's lives and see their lives touched, changed, and transformed. And just as mine was in 1993, by the blood of Jesus Christ, and as Ivan's was in 1996. And so, hope folks will come out and go on our websites, check out our websites, and get all the information. And of course, you gave the information of the other website for the event Saturday night, but if they forget that one, they can go to NikitaKoloff.com and get all the information. So I'm just excited. Hope to see a lot of folks out there and be able to shake a lot of hands.
All right. We should get one caller here. Can we get to him real quick? Because he called in earlier and before we had you on.
Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely. Let's do it.
Brian, you got a quick question here?
Yeah, my question was for Nikita. When you were teaming with the Road Warriors back in '87, I was wondering if Animal ever brought his son to the backstage or not, and if you ever actually met his son or had any inclination that he would be because I live in Columbus, Ohio, and he's quite a celebrity down here. I was wondering if you had any idea at all that he'd be as great of an athlete as he is right now in football.
I tell you, it's an interesting story. I actually watched James grow up from birth. Animal and I go way back. I recruited Animal to my college to play football. And Animal was responsible, really partly responsible for recruiting me into wrestling when Don Canodal approached him and asked him if he knew any big guys. And so Animal and I go way back. We were like brothers, quite honestly, as his family kind of adopted me, and his mom and dad kind of adopted me into their family, so to speak, and so we spent many Christmases together, and so I've been a part of James's life for the most part from his birth, and so got the privilege of watching him grow up, and he is an absolute. You're exactly right. He is an absolute fine young man. In fact, we honored him. We honored James at our athletes banquet in Phoenix, Arizona last year as the top male Christian college athlete of the year. And
wow.
Absolutely.
You're surprised that he did this year. He opted not to go pro and decided to stay for one more year, and everybody's really happy here that he did that.
Yeah, I think, and again, I think that was really wise on his part, and so I can guarantee you, I can tell you this, when he and I were walking out onto the church platform last summer, he was going to speak to a church of about 5,000, and he looked at me and he said, I was encouraging him, I said, you know what, James, you're leading such a wonderful example for a lot of young people around the world out there, not just around America, but around the world. And he said, well, and I just recently got an article about, and the caption was something about the humble linebacker or something like that. And James told me, he said, before every game, he said, I crack open the Bible and I read 1 Peter 5:5, my favorite scripture, and it says, God opposes the proud, but favors the humble. And he said, that's my favorite scripture. I read it before every game. And I want to tell you right now, because of that humble heart that he has, that's why he's having the success that he has. He is an incredibly fine young man. I'm so proud of James.
Cool. I appreciate you taking my call. I'll be calling back later for Magnum TA, but thank you very much for taking my call, Nikita.
Absolutely. You have a blessed night, and I appreciate you calling in.
Right. Thanks for coming on, Nikita. We really appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. And so you got Magnum on next?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, tell him to watch his backside, because, I always do my best work when their back's turned to me, so. Tell him to watch out for the Russian sicko. You never know, I might flip out and have a flashback or something. Hey, guys, thanks for having me on. You guys, God bless everybody out there tonight. Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, man. You too.
This is Magnum TA. Whenever I want to get all the ins and outs of what's going on in wrestling, I listen to InYourHeadOnline.com.